Dynasty Debrief, running back rankings, Dynasty, top 12. Here we go, Dak. Who's number one?
Number one, easy. We got Bijan Robinson starting off the S tier. A couple things to know about Bijan. He's 22. He's freed from Arthur Smith. They just brought in Zach Robinson as a new offensive coordinator. So everyone that owned Bijan last year obviously knows the struggles they had not using him enough. This year, that should be a lot different. He was already RB9 last year, averaging 14.5 points per game, and we think that's going to skyrocket. He probably has the most talent in the NFL as a running back. So once he gets that usage that we think he'll get this season and moving forward, we just think he's going to blast off. He also had the passing work. He had like 58 catches his rookie year. So the sky's the limit for Bijan, really.
All right. Also in S tier, we got Breece Hall. Breece Hall is an elite running back. Only 22 years old, will be 23 soon, but super young. This year, he was an incredible RB2 while coming off a torn ACL. That's basically unheard of, besides like Adrian Peterson. An absolute monster. If you take away his 4 games in the beginning of the year where he didn't play over 50% of snaps, he averaged 20 points per game, which is just insane. Not to mention on a terrible, terrible offense. After Rodgers went down after snap 4 of their season, they had Zach Wilson and I don't remember who else, but Tim Boyle just playing terrible, absolutely worst quarterback play in the NFL. He had 1 rushing attempt inside the 5 in the entire year. To put that in perspective, players like Pollard, Mixon, and McCaffrey had 60-plus rushing attempts inside the 5. So him having 1 is just like unfair. Despite that, he still had 9 touchdowns last year. A couple receiving, a couple rushing, but it shows that he can score from anywhere on the field. But next year, when they get Aaron Rodgers back, just expect those touchdowns to skyrocket. I could see Breece Hall having 20 touchdowns next year easily on that good of an offense with the talent that he has. He also had the most receptions out of any running back last year and the most receiving yards out of any running back. Those are both great numbers. We love receptions from running backs because we play PPR leagues. And yeah, just Breece Hall game record next year.
Yeah, this year was just classic Nathaniel Hackett foolishness. Rounding out the S tier, we have Jahmyr Gibbs, running back for the Lions. This year, he was started off slow. Rookie year. Rookie running backs normally take a while to get going. People were getting upset with Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson. Hey, why is Montgomery getting this much work? When are we going to see the star? We traded up to number 12. When are we going to see this? When are we going to see this masterpiece start? And Jahmyr Gibbs stepped in, 21 years old, 16.1 points per game this year. He commanded a 14.1% target share. And that is really insane when you look at the weapons that they had on offense. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Josh Reynolds, Montgomery, Gibbs. A really crowded offense, a lot of mouths to feed. And he still commanded a 14.1% target share as a running back. So that is really good. For the foreseeable future, he'll be in a committee with Montgomery, which is why he's 3rd rather than 1st or 2nd in our rankings. But with Montgomery being there, it does give him the opportunity to stay healthier and fresh, where he can become more explosive and use his dynamic speed more in the open field as the game progresses.
Yeah, so that's going to round out our S tier. I think those are the 3 cornerstone running backs that you want to have on your team. Everyone else we're going to get to eventually. Not to say that they're interchangeable, but they're just not those key guys that you're building a running back room around. Like those 3 guys are just different. But getting to the A tier, we've got Christian McCaffrey coming in at number 4. The biggest thing you might point to if you're not a fan of his is his age. He is 28, but he has not missed a game in 2 years, and he was RB1 last year at 24.5 points per game. That kind of production you're just not getting from anyone else, really. He breaks fantasy every year, and he's still going to be in that 49ers offense where they just use him a ton. They use him in the passing game, in the rushing game, and it's a good offense, so he's going to always get a ton of touchdown opportunities. Just for the next couple of years, he's going to be there. And I think especially with the running back room, you're not looking 5-6 years in advance. You're looking like a 2 to 3 year window that you want to have those running backs in. And I think he's perfect for the next 2 to 3 years. I don't see any drop off. He hasn't shown any drop off. I think he's going to continue being in that 22 to 25 points per game. And yeah, you want him on your team.
Yeah, McCaffrey really is like his own unique tier of player where he's a little old, but like, do you expect that to stop until he gets hurt again? Like, I don't. I think he's just going to be good forever.
As long as he stays healthy,
yeah,
the numbers are going to be off the chart.
And he can run routes too, which I think helps his longevity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't have to use him as just that running back ground and pound guy. They can put it out in the slot, and he gets those PPR points because he's such a great route runner. So I just think that helps him going forward.
Yeah, so also in the A tier, we have Jonathan Taylor. Taylor had 15.6 points per game this year, which is it's respectable. But if you get rid of the games where he played 50% of snaps or less, he had 17.6 points per game. So that's a little more in that high-end RB1, mid-end RB1 tier, which we do like to see. He missed a lot of time this year because of his thumb. It's a very fluky injury. That's not something that's going to continue to happen. And besides that thumb, he's always been pretty healthy his whole NFL and collegiate career. He just had like an ankle sprain, which is very, very good. He's a very talented running back. We can all see that. He's a very good runner of the football. And he can catch the ball decently well. What's something to be excited about is the fact that they have Richardson coming next year. So he could really bolster the running game with just the duality of having an elite rushing quarterback along with the elite rushing running back. It is a perfect combo and might allow for Taylor to have just very good efficiency next year. On top of that, like just Dak said a couple minutes ago, with the 2 to 3 year window, Taylor signed a 3-year extension in the offseason, so he's going to be with them for the foreseeable future, which is nice to see because a lot of the other running backs on the list might have a 1 to 2 year window. So knowing that he'll be on the team for 3 years is exciting, and yeah, he's just a great running back to have on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with Shane Steichen there. That's a great offense. That's always going to produce. So feeling comfortable if you got Jonathan Taylor on your team for sure. Yeah.
Next up to start the beach here, we have Travis Etienne, running back for the Jaguars. A lot of people expected more out of the Jaguars this year, including myself. However, the offense did underperform, but Etienne did still put up elite numbers. 16.6 fantasy points per game this year. He had a nose for the end zone, got in a ton. The production kind of dropped off as the season went on, but maybe injury had something to do with that. Wear and tear. Peterson wanted to mix it up moving forward. But all in all, he did have a really good year. Over that 16 points per game, still only 25 years old, so he still has some good years ahead of him. Probably a 3 to 4 year window where you're going to get real solid production out of Etienne. I can't see that offense getting any worse with Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson, so he should be involved more in the pass game, hopefully moving forward, and he will always have that nose for the end zone as long as he's on the field.
Yeah. Moving on to the B tier, now we got Kyron Williams coming in RB7. He averaged 21 points per game last year. He got hurt halfway through the year, so he was only RB7. Kyron Williams, we're not as sold on. We still have him at RB7 just because of the landscape of dynasty running backs. It's rough, as you're going to see. And Kyron Williams had a good year. He was really efficient with his touches. He averaged 5 yards a carry. He's not the biggest guy. He's only 5'9", 195 pounds. So it's kind of surprising that he had as much workload as he did, but he made the most of it. He had 12 touchdowns. The reason we don't really have him higher, he's only 24, is because, one, the draft capital, he was a 5th-round pick, so they didn't invest much into him. And especially in that system, you wonder if they can bring in someone else to kind of replace him. And you see him just kind of fall off just because he didn't have that much invested in him. And then the other thing is the 12 touchdowns. He's a small back, so if they do bring in someone else, you could probably see those touchdowns going down. Touchdowns are a fluky stat, and 12 is a lot to replicate going year to year. And then the last thing I wanted to add about him is he only had 32 catches, so not a ton added in the receiving game, but overall he's still a good player. I mean, 21 points per game. Like, he's a good player. We keep him there in the B tier for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, Kyron's somebody who could go up or down a lot this offseason based on if they draft a running back, if they bring in someone in free agency. If they don't, he's going to be worth a decent bit more, just considering the fact that he's going to put up 20 points a game next year if he's the bell cow again. For sure. So next up, rounding off the end of the B tier, we have Devin Achane, who had a very interesting rookie year. He averaged 7.8 yards per carry. 7.8. You did not hear me wrong, which is just absolutely insane. You never even see it start with a 6, let alone a 7, and almost up to 8 because it's 7.8. Now, a couple things about Achane, he has some negatives, right? He's small. He's 187 pounds. That's not great. And he's gotten hurt a couple times, right? He had 2 injuries this year, 2 pretty decent injuries. But, injuries are fluky. He's probably a little more prone, but hopefully in the coming years he won't get as injured. But the thing with Devin Achane is that he has immense upside. He had 20.8 points per game this year in games where he had more than 1 carry. That is nuts. He's hyper efficient. He's never going to have that bell cow role just because of his size. But if he can get 14 touches a game, which I don't think is out of the realm of possibility for him, he can be a hyper efficient back that can put up those crooked numbers. He's going to have those boom weeks, which will win you weeks, which is just exciting to have on your team. Having a player that can put up 50 points there's only like 10 of them in the league that can probably do that. So he's exciting. He's tied to a good offense with a good head coach. Like, you want to be in the Dolphins offense. They put up a lot of points sometimes, and they're very explosive and very efficient, which is exactly what A-Chain is. They utilize him greatly. One thing to look at is Mostert. Now, Mostert's not a big back either. Mostert's under 200 pounds, and he had a stupid amount of touchdowns this year. So, I don't expect A-Chain to steal those goal line touchdowns, but maybe he can weasel out a couple more from Mostert, who had 20 plus this year. Maybe he can take a couple more of them and get that touchdown upside. He also catches the football, which we do love to see from running backs. And he's only 22 years old, so he's a great player to have. He's a little polarizing in the community, but for me, he's a little bit of a buy.
Yeah, I think you let Mostert give them a couple more touchdowns. A little greedy with 20 plus, so see what happens.
Mostert's not good enough. That 20 plus touchdowns.
All right, Jeff.
Won't happen again. Next up in the C tier, we have Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley's been an outstanding talent ever since his rookie year at Penn State with the Giants, but this year, a little different. Could see him in another uniform as he's an undrafted free agent. Unrestricted free agent this offseason. There's a potential where he could go to a much better offense. I've heard rumors of the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh now with a run-heavy offense, they could give him 20, 25 touches a game. And if he's in that offense with Herbert, maybe a rookie wide receiver such as Neighbors and Odunze, that offense could reach heights it's never seen before. He's had really solid receiving floor his whole career. That could go up moving forward, could go down, but the floor is there where you're guaranteed to get 3, 4, 5 receptions a game, which will come with the yards. Only 27 years old, put up 15.9 fantasy points per game this year on that horrible Giants offense that was led by Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor for most of the year. So I'm expecting an increase, maybe a point or two more points per game this year for Barkley. If he goes to a better offense, sky's the limit.
Riddle me this. Saquon goes to the Chargers. Where is he in your rankings? I think for me, he jumps to RB6. He jumps all of these guys in B tier.
He jumps A-Chain, he jumps Kyron.
I think he jumps ETN. I think
he's up there.
Yeah. I think he has 20 points per game easy under his belt if he goes to the Chargers.
Yeah.
I think he starts off that B tier for us and maybe even cracks that A tier.
He might even join Jonathan Taylor, depending on what the deal is. If it's like a 3-year deal.
It's like kind of what we said before. It's a 2 to 3 year window that you want to play with running backs. And 27 years old, if you get him in that Chargers offense,
Give me that.
That's nice. So moving on to RB10, we got Rachaad White. This is another guy who I think kind of gets hated on because of his inefficiency. And it's not pretty. He only averaged 3.6 yards per carry. But again, kind of going back to the whole PPR aspect, if you're playing in those leagues, he's really good at that. He caught like 60 passes this year. And he's a good receiving back. He gets flack for his rushing ability, but he always has that receiving floor. And he had third-round draft capital, so I don't really think he's going anywhere. That Tampa Bay team as a whole has other areas to address other than running back. I don't think that's something they're really looking to replace. So I think you've got White, who at least will serve out the end of his rookie contract. So you're looking at 2 more years where he's got that backfield to himself. And he was RB4 this year. He averaged 16 points per game. He's solid. He's not great, but he's solid, and that's why he's in the C tier. So especially someone with that receiving floor, he's a solid guy to have in your running back room for Dynasty.
All right, so also in this tier we have Ken Walker. Ken Walker was a little polarizing just amongst us as a player. He's not the best running back in the league by any means, but he's one of the few with a solid spot in a team and an okay offense. In games that he played over 50% of snaps this past year, he had 15.6 points per game. It's decent. It's not bad. One big glaring issue for Ken Walker is the fact that they drafted Sharp in the second round last year. Charbonnet did not have a good rookie year. He did not look great at all, really. But they did spend second round draft capital on him, so I would expect him to have a bigger role next year. And he does take away the receiving work from Ken Walker. Ken Walker has a very low receiving upside. He's 1 or 2 catches a game max, which is not great. And we do like that receiving floor, so not having that's pretty big. He's kind of like a poor man's Nick Chubb, in my opinion. Older Nick Chubb, obviously. Nick Chubb of now is a little washed. But he's only 23 years old, which is good. And he's a good pure runner, which is what Nick Chubb is, you know what I mean? So he's not bad. He's not a great offense. He's fine. We don't mind having him, but he's okay.
Yeah, and kind of the point that Dalton made, all these running backs are interchangeable. That's why we have him in the C tier. So if you think Kenneth Walker should be above Saquon, whatever, don't yell at us. It's just the biggest point is that they're all in the same tier. So we don't think that they're like a Travis Etienne level, but we think they're above like an Isaiah Pacheco level, who'd probably be the next tier. So they're all in that same tier, so you should all value them accordingly.
Yeah, rounding out the This last tier, we have James Cook. James Cook's 24 years old, only averaged 13.7 points per game this year, and you might be saying, only 13.7 points per game, why is he here? Well, second half of the year, once the Bills moved on from Ken Dorsey, moved to Joe Brady, he exploded onto the scene. Joe Brady also was brought back. They removed the interim tag. He's going to be the full offensive coordinator for next year, and that is the best thing all James Cook owners wanted to hear. This season, he averaged 16.7 fantasy points per game when Joe Brady was the one calling the plays. They gave him more volume. They gave him more look in the passing game. I know he had the big boom week against Dallas. I had him in the fantasy playoffs. He was out there running routes like a wide receiver. He was catching 30-yard passes down the field for touchdowns. I'm like, what is going on here? So that just shows you like what James Cook can do for you. Do you expect that on a weekly basis? Absolutely not. But it does show that he can catch the ball. He's got good receiving upside, and he will always be used in that elite Bills offense.
Yeah, being a part of the Bills offense, it'll just get you in the top 12 running backs. All right, that's all we got for you. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like the video and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.